Hello, Karen Bonafilio, Inner Realms, Outer Journeys. I'm back again. I have a fabulous guest today. I have told you that I have 3 favorite psychic mediums in my area, and this is one of them. This is Renee Terrill. Did I say it right?
You did.
I'm
Hi.
trying so hard. Let me tell you a little bit about Renee. One, I've taken some classes from her, and oh my God, they're fabulous. And I've also had readings with her. So Renee is a noted and highly sought after spiritual psychic medium, an intuitive counselor, a teacher, a healer, a Reiki Master, certified clinical hypnotist, and I think we're going to have her back on the channel for that.
Cool.
And she's an instructor of hypnosis and a certified NLP, neuro linguistic programming.
Yep.
Okay. She's been offering intuitive readings, psychic medium, and mentoring sessions in Portland, Oregon for over 29 years. That's a long time.
Since the mid-90s.
Oh my gosh. Were you familiar with, oh God, I can't get her name now. Never mind.
It'll come.
Lori McQuarrie.
I knew of her. I never knew her personally, but yeah, she used to do a lot of crime cases.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's how I started my journey.
Wow.
I'm not in crime.
Sure.
But working with her.
That's fair.
Oh, okay. She holds sessions by phone and also Zoom for clients all over the world. She is also the founder of the Northwest Psychic Institute. I want you to talk about that, please.
Sure.
And teaches psychic development classes online for those wanting to further develop their skills. And I know a lot of you have asked me about developing those skills. And and I've talked to you about Susan's book, and she is also a wealth of information. So I'm going to just let you talk for a few minutes before I ask you any questions, anything that you want to talk about first.
Sure. Well, I love that more and more people are seeking to understand who they are, right? The gifts they carry and how we can not really discover and develop our gifts, but share them with the world more, because we need so much light right now in the world.
We do.
And every single one of us comes equipped with something. Isn't that nice? Like, we've all got some intuitive ability or ability to care or have empathy, or to see, right? Or to lend a hand, to help in some way. So I get very excited about that. And I also love, with the mediumship work, helping clients, but also students, learn how to be more in touch with the other side so that we continue our relationship with our loved ones that are in spirit. You know, it's so difficult having our lives change so much, you know, with the loss that we're dealing with and navigating down here, right, with them. But to create access to the connectedness that is always there, to me, it's just inspiring. It just brings me so much joy because they're all around. It's just a matter of how we pay attention or how we don't, and how we can live with them.
In that, right?
I do. Yep.
Okay. And Renee, you also told me something before we started recording about, would you like to share that with the...
Well, sure. A few different things. I was feeling your mama ahead of time, with your dad quietly behind her, and I can feel your sweetheart with them too. But your mom was talking about that she's so excited about the work that you're doing. And you've got a second book apparently you're working on.
Yeah, on these guys.
And she said, what a wonderful treat it is to be able to be present with you in these processes. And she's also loving that other people are getting to know them in a way too, as you're sharing their love, right, with other people. And she's finding it fascinating, because she keeps calling it fascinating. But she said she just loves you so much. And then she said, I know you hear me.
I know I do.
Yeah.
And in ode to mom, this is her jacket, and this
I
is
love them.
one of her pieces.
Oh, that's gorgeous.
Yeah, so
Gorgeous.
yeah, we were the same size, so it was kind of nice.
When you said this is her, like a piece of hers, and I said gorgeous, she patted her hair.
Oh my gosh, I wish you could have done sitting with her because she was a true lady.
Oh,
Well,
I
that's we
love
won't
her.
talk about her, but yes,
She's classy.
she's
That's for
very
sure.
classy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all heart,
What was
for
that? Oh,
sure.
yes, yes. Well, mom had a rough upbringing, and so she turned that around, which I really admire about her.
Yeah.
And I told her one time, if she wasn't a nice mommy, I wouldn't take care of her. And she goes, because I did, for all those years.
Yeah.
And she said, yes, you would. And I said, no, I wouldn't. I'm not as good. I'm not as good a person as you are. I wouldn't, Mom. You'd have to have the other sister take care of you.
Yeah.
She preferred at that point in time for me to take care of her.
She's grateful that you put up with her. And then she's like, "Oh, it wasn't so bad." Like it wasn't that bad.
No, we had so much fun. We really did. I love them so much. Okay, let's talk about you.
Sure.
First of all, how did you first discover your ability to communicate with the people behind the veil?
Oh boy. So I saw things when I was little, but it was scary. And I was also kind of raised in the generations of you're not supposed to be hearing voices and seeing ghosts, and that you could have something psychologically wrong with you, or it's of the devil, or you're making stuff up, and so I had that to contend with, trying to even, in addition to already it being scary. So fortunately, I learned to kind of ignore it, which taught me how to tune out.
Oh.
And then when I got into martial arts, goodness sakes, in the early 90s, and started learning about presence and emptiness, and also about energy and being right in the moment. And what is remarkable is those things all of a sudden, poof, opened my gifts again, because,
Really?
yep, I was in the now, right? Not running around in my head. And I started seeing energy and sensing energy and feeling things. And I thank heavens got curious about all of it rather than so scared of everything. And over time, I learned that the paying attention to it was the biggest key, whether I was paying attention, tuning in, or tuning out, not paying attention. And I found that I just happened to have this ability, knack for knowing things about people, and also where they had like trauma, right? Or issues in their body even, right? And I just knew things about them. And true to my fashion, I just dive into things because I don't know I can't. And so I started doing just regular intuitive or psychic readings for people too. And I didn't realize that I was medium for a little while, because I had an idea of what it should look like and sound like. I think I had this idea that, a spirit was just going to appear in front of me and talk, and away it goes. And, and I actually had a client one day say, "Renee, have you heard of John Edward? Like, you need to read this guy's book." And I did. And I went, "Oh, okay. I do that too." Like, I'm already doing that too. Because when people on the other side come through, they vary depending on how their communication styles are, but also how their energy is. And how we perceive them can also vary depending on our own modalities of perception and learning and expression too.
Now, are you stronger in any modality, or you can?
I receive on all different levels, and I try and teach that to students too, like to harness what you're strongest at, but to develop all, because if they communicate in different ways, you want to be open to the ways in which they might be trying to get the information across. So initially, and still pretty much my strongest is the clairaudience, so auditory communication, as well as clairsentience and empathy, so vibration, feeling, energy, and the intuitive, like the inner knowing. And those combine brilliantly. And what I love about the clairaudience is if we get the right kind of connect, I can hear them just talk in my head. I get the character, I get specifics. It's like having them on the phone, right, with me.
That's so nice.
And I'm very visual too. It's just that most of the time when we get visual connections, it's internal, but it kind of projects a little bit
Yes.
too,
Yes.
right? And
Great.
so I get visual, I get the auditory. Sometimes I will get sense, which isn't always lovely because I can have somebody smoking in my room. I don't want it to be.
Better than taste.
Fair. Fair. I don't get the taste, so yay. And I'm glad I don't, because again, that could vary.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very sensory, very auditory. And I get visual too. And my job is to lovingly show up, create kind of that safe, sacred space to welcome, right? Who is there and create that supportive space for them to share what they know and need for the client. Now, and I remind this to students, and it's really tricky because we want to do a good job. We want to get it right. We want to make sure everything's glorious. But the only way to do that is to humbly and lovingly show up to serve and support who's there. They know who they are. They know what they need to show. They know what they need to share. They know what they need to say. It's not my job. And this is confusing sometimes to people. It's not my job to know it all. I can't.
Right.
I'm meeting people on the fly, right? And I tell that to clients sometimes too. I'm like, look, I'm the kid in the middle, like like picking up conversation and about people I don't know, things I don't know. And I learn as it goes, like in real time. But to show up with love and curiosity and be there to serve, I love it. But it also is never ever boring. It keeps it interesting the whole time too. Because sometimes I'm like, what? Really?
Really? You want me to say that? Well, I know I'll pass along messages and I'm thinking, this is kind of a really weird thing to say, but it usually makes sense to that person.
Yes. And my rule of thumb with that, the weirder it is, like the stranger it is, the more accurate it is. And by it being weird or strange to our own mind shows that we didn't create it. Because the mind's questioning it, being like, what is that?
Yeah.
Okay. So the more bizarre, generally, the more accurate. Isn't that wild? Yeah.
Well, I know the first time that I had a reading with you, you didn't know me. You knew nothing about me.
No, I prefer it that way too, because I want to make sure my head's not in there somewhere.
Right. And so that was great. And my husband, well, I know all my family members came too.
Yeah.
But my husband did especially.
Yeah.
And it was wonderful to hear from him. So comforting. You said you see energy. I want to know more about that.
Sure. And sometimes people see through feeling too. So I feel energy, but I can see energy too. And when I first started seeing energy, because I was taught about chi and energy in the martial arts training that I got into, and I got into advanced classes as a beginner, which I'm so sure had to have been spiritually orchestrated because it doesn't normally happen. But I remember one day when I was leading a class and separating the students to do different things. Like I wanted one group to go over and work on the bags. I wanted one group to go over and work on, their level. And I wanted another group to go over here to work on the mats. And I went like this and paused. And it's funny to think of it now because I was sitting there moving my finger because I saw energy for the first time. And then I was like, oh, sorry. You go work on the mat. I'm sitting here doing this. But yes, it's, again, paying attention to our essence, right? Our energy is part of our divine essence. We've got energy fields.
Yes.
And we emit energy too. But we can also just the same pay attention to it. Sometimes we feel it.
But when you point it, tell me about the energy that you saw.
I saw light and I saw color.
That's what I was.
So I kept moving my finger trying to with
her. Stop it, man. There you
go. A lot of times if you actually look at a person but relax your gaze and stare past them a bit, you can start perceiving. It'll feel like your eyes are crossing a little, right? But you can start perceiving little bits of the light. And most of the time people will perceive it kind of more like black and white or a little grayscale. Like it'll seem a little brighter, at first. But with time, as your sight develops and your comfort with allowing that too, you can start seeing bits of color too.
Well, I did that in church and other places. I would just kind of focus onto the side of the person, and then I could see the field around them. And I
Yay.
thought, this is really cool.
Yeah, it is. It is. I call all of this cool but weird all the time.
Fascinating
It's
practice.
fabulous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I do have a question.
sure.
When I was little, well, I can still do it now. I would close my eyes at night
Mhm.
or keep them open, and I would see swirling colors all
Energy.
around me.
Mhm.
That was energy.
Yeah, that's
I
energy.
didn't know if it was spirit. I didn't know what it was, but I would just
Well,
see all these.
and spirit is energy, so we're saying the same thing, right? That was spirit. That
Oh,
was spirit. Now you could pick up on the energy in the room, of course, right? We can picture,
mhm.
we can perceive just the essence of the energy in the space and in the room, but most often we perceive spirit that way. That's why sometimes we will get a ping of light peripherally, or it'll kind of burst, you get a little bit of a burst of energy, or you can see a shadow sometimes peripherally, because
Yes.
it's easier to perceive spirit, energy, all of the above, when we are experiencing things in a sensory fashion.
Mhm.
As soon as you turn to look at it, it disappears though, because the analytical mind kicks in trying to figure it out. And then poof, you're out of the experience again.
That's happened, and it's so frustrating.
Very much. And then if you try and get it back, it worsens it because you're now digging further into the
Right.
analytical mind.
Yes.
All great connecting with spirit, and it's interesting because we teach people how to do it, but then we're really trying to teach people to not try to do it, which is, it sounds funny because the more effort you put in, again, the worse it goes. We're wanting to create a perceptive state in which we're present,
Mm-hmm.
curious, and experiencing. So sensing, feeling, listening, observing, right? Being
Mm-hmm.
right in the now and just experiencing what's right here.
I
But
remember having lunch with a friend and looking up and seeing her husband, who was, passed.
yeah.
And then I was shocked, and I looked at her, and then I looked back, and he was gone. I wish I didn't look away from him.
Yeah.
That, yeah, because, and he was just smiling like, gosh, Maddie, I,
Just hanging out.
yeah, she picks up on energy. So
Hi, Maddie.
got it going on here.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Renee, this is great. Tell me the process you use in connecting with spirit.
Um, Sometimes me, other people too, will just have things that come, without doing much of anything. For
Mhm.
session work, I do a lengthier process so that my energy's stable and it doesn't take so much out of me.
Oh,
And because I'm a trance medium, and I actually, not only am I creating energetic space for them to inhabit, right? I actually am sharing my body and my space with them. So I will feel how they've passed away, their personalities, their energy. They're borrowing my battery, right, to do this. And so to create better stability, you take time with diaphragmatic breathing. That's crucial with any kind of connecting because it keeps us present and experiencing.
mhm.
And I call in Archangel Michael, the Legion of Light, my guardians and gatekeepers, so all my protectors, to kind of cut any cords that are draining my energy, clear out any energy or any, entities, etc., that aren't for my highest good, clear the space, and to make the space sacred. I then do clearing work, and for me, I use a waterfall that's a tropical waterfall that's filled with light to kind of pressure wash everything off and out. And then
Mhm.
after that, I stand underneath sunshine
Mhm.
to bring in healing energy, but protective energy. And not only do I carry that over my body, but through my body, and then I start to fill with it and radiate it.
Mhm. Outward
Then
toward
I
them. Mhm.
open from the center, like everything's shining, and let that expand so that we create a big, huge bubble of light. So again, there's that safe, sacred space. I
I
call in
remember
my
you
highest,
teaching that too.
yeah, I call in my highest guides, angels, any divine beings of light that assist me and support me in my channeling work, mediumship work, healing work, intuitive
Mhm.
work. Um, and then I go up to connect with source.
Yes.
So I raise my light. Now with the diaphragmatic breathing, though, you can be breathing in the light, exhaling it down to the earth, right to ground. and then up towards source. And I always do prayer work to source itself and ask to be a clear channel to
And this
actually
is
receive.
all before you meet with anyone.
Yep.
Okay.
I always say, like, I will to thy will, meaning it's your show. It's your show. And I ask that they tell me what the client needs and what they want for the client. But I also ask for support in communicating with each person's loved ones, but only the right people at the right time, because they can get excited and be early if I'm not careful.
Pushing and shoving.
They get excited. I actually had to put a note a long time ago on my website to stop swearing at your loved ones, that they better show up, because I started getting people too early and like needing to show up because they're getting after me, you know, or they would wake me up in the middle of the night and I'm like, God, I'm
No.
sleeping. Really?
No.
And if you'd have told me that, you know, a while back, I'd have been like, really, please, like, no. But it does happen.
Oh my gosh. Hey, will you explain to our listeners what cutting the cord means? The
Sure.
cord. Yeah.
So there's different processes for that, but the basic idea is kind of releasing any tethering or any draining connections that we might have, anything we might be carrying around, anything that might be kind of siphoning our energy, because people can do that, right? Well, even if they don't mean to, anytime we're interacting with people, it's like plugging in. And so when we're kind of cutting cords, but I have them do it, it's really, in a sense, releasing that which we don't need. And calling back to ourselves our own energy too, right? And anytime we gently direct our minds, our psyche to a particular idea, that becomes real. We start tapping into that experience. Isn't that nice? So when we start looking at this idea of releasing, right, attachments or clearing things out, cutting cords, unplugging, it tells the psyche, let everything go. And then it says, okay, cool, I'm done. And it puts us then in that freer, lighter mode.
I actually do that every day when
Good,
I go.
me too. All the time, throughout the day.
Yeah, I go, I know I'm messed up, but I say it a little differently. Please, Archangel Michael, take your heavenly blue sword of light and cut these cords that are tethering me.
I love it. You can also ask them to surround you and shield you with their divine light of love and protection and healing.
I do that too.
Yeah, it helps. Oh, it helps. It helps. It helps. And anytime we visualize things or imagine things, meditate on things, those really are all the same. Again, the beauty of it is it's communicating directly to the subconscious, which then puts us in that mode that becomes our reality. We start experiencing those things. So same with the clearing. Then the systems start releasing things. We hang out in the light. Yay, right? We start raising vibration and being in a better space. And when we then are connecting with source or the divine in whatever way is right for each person, because some draw from Gaia, right? Earth, you know, some it's source. To me, source, eternal consciousness, right? The all that is. I'm always staying in that perpetual flow of the light, that never ending, and that nice flow of consciousness. And so when we're with the diaphragmatic breath, guess what? In comes the information. We can then share it.
So I know many of my listeners, this is all new to them.
Yay!
I know, it's really cool. But they doubt themselves. They doubt that they're hearing from their family members or from source. Yeah. And
we all have that.
What's that?
We all have that because when something does not fit into our programming or our paradigms, right, our defense mechanisms want to check to see if it's on the list or what happened or where it came from. It's trying to keep us. It's trying to keep us safe and make sure we're not having bad voices or, you know, experiences that are not okay. Here's a fun rule of thumb that's kind of trippy. If
you are so cool.
Thanks. If you have an experience and then the mind follows questioning it, the experience was true.
Oh,
the mind questioning it is because it doesn't understand where it came from. And our mind most often will want to qualify it, quantify it, put it in a little comfy box. So it'll say, I must have just imagined it. That phrasing already also shows that something had happened because it's trying to put it in a comfort zone, right? A comfy little spot. So I don't know where that came from is what it's really saying. It must be this. Throw it over here.
Yes.
So the experience always precedes the mind.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is people can pay attention to how it feels when the message or the experience first comes, because it usually will bring clarity or calm or light
Mm-hmm.
before the brain is like, excuse me, hold up.
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt. So
And
those of you that doubt, rewind and listen to that again.
well, yes. And the other thing too is the deeper a person goes into the meditative state, and I cannot say this enough, the diaphragmatic breath is key because it takes us out of fight or flight. It takes us out of the analytical mind and puts us in the intuitive part of the mind, the experiencing part of us, which is where our gifts are anyway. They're right there.
So you need to define that breathing or how to do it. Please.
Yes. So diaphragmatic breathing, instead of fight or flight up into the shoulders, feeling the breath as you inhale and pulling the breath down into the belly.
Mm-hmm.
Exhaling, sending it down through your feet. And everything starts slowing down. And what it does is it changes the nervous system that you're operating from. So it takes you out of fight or flight, puts us in calm, present, awareness mode. So that we can be perceiving. And the longer you do it, and the more you kind of hang out and stay in that meditative space, I like to kind of compare it to when we feel daydreamy.
Oh, yeah.
So that kind of daydreamy type of space where we're just hanging out, right? We're just, and in a good way, we can imagine, like, so putting ourselves in a beautiful place. So a gorgeous garden in the heavens with no pollen, right? Or if people love a forest, sit in the forest. If you like the beach, because I do, sit in a beach. Oftentimes when connecting, I will park my mind, myself, in a sacred temple space where I do my channeling work. And then my brain is like, okay, I'm in that gear. So with practice and repetition, different rituals that people use start not only building neural pathways, but strengthening them. See, there's the hypnosis training. Isn't that fun? To go into that gear or that mode. If we're anxious, the mind is still too present and in charge. The breath work allows us to go beyond the mind, to shift the gears.
I learned that from you, to really work on that breath work.
It helps so much.
Yeah.
It helps so much.
It really does. And then I can feel instantly, okay, now you can connect.
Yes.
I know when that time has come.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to do so with curiosity and again, I know it's really tricky because we want it to happen. We want to get it. We want everything to be accurate and okay. And also to make sure we're not losing our minds, to be fair,
It's been a long time.
Well, yeah. But connecting with the divine is always positive in nature. That's another way you can tell whether it's your own brain or not. Listen to the verbiage, listen to the advice, right? And oftentimes, even the pronouns, are the way that they communicate, because we say I, they will say you or we. So, and sometimes the verbiage is formulated in a different way, different types of terminology that we don't always use. And the other side always wants to make things better or lift things up. And they're usually simple, clear. They will keep repeating themselves too, even if you're like, that was too easy. That couldn't have been it. They'll be like, okay, do it again. They'll repeat themselves. And it's okay to ask for clarification or for repetition, especially with signs, because our teams on the other side, whether that's just source and the universe itself, right? Whether that is angels, guides, etc., depends on what beliefs a person has.
Right.
They want it to work. They're there to help so that we can be more us here, helping too. It's a collaboration. Isn't that wonderful?
What's that?
It's a collaboration.
It is. And you have this whole team helping you out, and they're
always
there because they want to be heard. They do want to reach out to us and to comfort us.
Yes. And we have to create space for that, because a lot of times we want help, but we don't create the space to let it in. So
And
if
if
we're
you're,
saying, give me, help, 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 but we're
yeah,
busy all the time running around, they could be like right here
I'm
trying to give
trying.
it to you, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying. Let me
Yeah.
do it.
It's about creating the opportunity, right? To let them advocate for you or support you, create space to receive it too.
So, what happens to you when you are in a crowd of people? Because if you're able to feel all that's going on, you gotta protect yourself or
It
be
it can
bombarded.
get interesting. Twofold antique shops, which I
Oh,
love. Oh my Lord. Because I'm picking up data all the time, even though we don't realize that we are. So that can be tiring, right? And the energy connected to all the people tied to those things. And
oh, I
crowds,
get tired when I go antiquing.
yep, it's an overload of sensory input. And
Oh my God.
same with crowds because there's just a lot going on.
Oh my
I
gosh.
would have, same as you had with your friend that had the husband show up, I'd be in the grocery store and all of a sudden start seeing people and I'd be like, nope, nope, not doing it. Number one, the person might not be ready yet. Number two, what if they don't like it? I don't want to be, in trouble either. And so I
Mhm.
would mention you got to have them bring up angels or something like that. So I know the coast is clear, but I also now say, nope, get in for an appointment. We'll talk. Like, no. But
Mhm.
energetically, one of the easiest ways to deal with that is if you think of, and there's different ways to do this, but it's the mentality that you're carrying at the moment. So some people walk around with their angels, right? Kind of keeping things out.
Mhm.
Sometimes people will picture mirrors facing outward around themselves to bounce everything out.
Oh. Mhm.
And it lets light in and yuck out, but keeps the yuck out, right? So you can't be seen.
That's
I
good.
like to go around in that bubble of light that we talked about. So my safe, sacred space where my energy is stable and grounded and connected,
Mhm.
but I'm observing and leaving things be, letting things be. So I'm observing, but leaving things out there. And you can also just take the viewpoint, which I use as well, that I can perceive data, but I can also let it go. I don't need to bring things in to look at it or carry it. I can just observe it, leave it where it is.
Mhm.
Or if I pick something up inadvertently, I can also breathe and guess what? Let it go again. And that's where, like, the waterfall helps again, like, if you get really hit hard, like, pressure,
Cleansing.
wash it off if you have to, dissolve it with light, like, whatever mentally works is fine, because it's, again, suggesting to our systems, "Let it go."
And the more you practice it, the more you're going to feel that too.
Yes, and it gets quicker and easier the more often that you do it, because you're actually building in and reinforcing neural pathways, like systems, and when I'm teaching people, all I have to do after a little bit of working with them is say, "Now take a deep breath," and they're already,
Yeah.
like, in the zone, right? They're already there.
State,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah, I need to go back and listen to all my lessons from you.
Whatever helps. What's great
Yeah.
is that there's so many different approaches, and we all end up finding the right things we need at the right time. And the divine helps us with that though too, right? The little reminders, the little remembrances, the little nudges, the right books, the right classes, the right teachers. And what I love about all this, even after working with clients for what, about 30 years now, which
Oof.
I don't know where the
Ooh, got
time, I don't know
chills.
where the time goes. Um, it's still interesting. It's never boring. I'm still learning, even
Mhm.
though I've experienced quite a lot, I've gone through a lot, but being open to
Mhm.
always learning more makes it fun, but then I also get more. So my willingness, isn't that fun to be open
Mhm.
and to go beyond my own parameters?
Mhm.
That's where the cool stuff comes, but it's a never ending journey.
Do you ever give messages that the receiver doesn't want to hear?
Yeah,
Oh, you
it
do.
doesn't happen often, thank heavens. But every so often I will get someone in spirit that the client's like, I don't want to talk to them. Now,
Really?
oftentimes I can feel it in the person in spirit because they'll
Ah.
be staring at the wallpaper or, shuffling around awkwardly. And I'm usually like, oh God, what did you do? Like, what are we here
Mhm.
for? But anytime that I've ever had that, because
Mhm.
all people heal and get well when they cross, no matter how bad.
Right.
They really do. And I've talked to some pretty damaged people. That's putting it very softly.
We're talking about spirit.
People in spirit that have, people that were here that have died, right? So I've even talked to people that have murdered people. Do you know what I mean? I've talked to any gambit of that you can expect. And so every so often, though, if a client's not quite ready yet to process things, that makes sense. But it's always positively framed. But I think part of that's because it's how I also look at things too. We're looking at the healing work, and it is most often that the other side's wanting to free that person, right, of those connections, those cords, right, those responsibilities.
Yes. Yeah.
They're wanting to make amends, not to say it was fine or to be BFFs, but to literally free the client of that,
Okay,
baggage that's
I have
going
a
on.
question on this because
Sure.
two different trains of thought.
Mm-hmm.
One, I know that we do volunteer to come down here to work on things.
Sure.
And is it ever a karmic debt where someone loses a life to someone else? Or is that pre-planned that this is what we're going to be doing?
I think some things are, and I think some things aren't. I think things roll once we get down
Okay.
here, so even though, because we have free will too. So I think that some things are pre-chosen, some things are not. And I don't think that we pre-choose everything, which isn't what you're saying, but some people allude to, like we must have chosen. I think that's our minds wanting to put things again in a comfy box so we feel better because we, to understand some things so that it's worth it, maybe, right? But yes, we can have soul contracts with people to say, okay, we're working on an XYZ. Will you do this? And other times I think it's that we're dealing with humans, we're dealing with people that their chemistry's not okay. Their wiring's not okay. Maybe they've gotten too damaged, right? Maybe there is some old past life stuff. So I think there's such a myriad of things that can affect the experience too.
And it's not going to fit into one little box.
It just
at all.
can't. It just can't.
So,
And I think there's so much that we just can't experience while we're in a body, right, with a mind either. And so I'm really careful not to do all or nothing thinking, because that also shuts us off to what else it could be too.
That's true. That's true. Do you have any particularly memorable readings that you've given to anyone?
That's an interesting one. Well, they all are in different ways, but I did have a fun time with KUPL quite a while back. We went to the Edgefield McMinimums and stayed up all night recording. They had me walk the place and look at spirits and ghosts. And we were all supposed to stay overnight and sleep there, but they all booked in the middle of the night and left me there.
You're kidding.
Oh.
You're the only one left.
It's actually quite lovely. I also had, we used to have a mental hospital called Damish here in Oregon. And I had people that had purchased the property that had me actually go through it and make sure that everything was happy and calm before they did renovating, and things in there. What I love the most though is getting to hear from people's loved ones that they know how much they love them, or they got to hear XYZ, or they now understand, right? Things that they couldn't have when they were here. I love the closure pieces, and that our connectedness continues, like it's a forever thing, right? In whatever way works for us, that love doesn't die. We're still heart connected. We're still linked. And that their experience on the other side, which is obviously so much cooler than ours because they're in paradise, but
seriously,
they feel fabulous, right? But they also have access to us here. They get both worlds. They get both sides, so to speak. So they're not suffering anymore.
And
not at all.
Aren't they also growing from us, even though they're there?
Yes.
Yes. It's kind of like, what do you call it? Synergistically, when you're working. Yeah.
Yeah. Where we're all working together and getting to, and it's what I like even about getting people that weren't that great, because we get to hear, I call it their healthiest, happiest versions of themselves. We get to hear from these people in spirit, but as the best possibilities of themselves with clarity, because that's the other big game changer too. People's blinders aren't on. And so I really love when we get to have that closure with people to say, look, it's okay. We understand, they know how much we love us. Oh, and even neater, they feel our love for them. That they've
That's
said over
true.
and over. They feel our love for them.
Doesn't it even grow more once they are gone?
Yes, because there are no filters keeping them from perceiving it anymore. So
Okay.
they're purely experiencing. How's that cool, right? So their mind being stuck in their head or distracted or dealing with chemistry or work or pain, right? Even physically, or emotionally. We have all these different detractors and distractions that are keeping
Right,
us
right.
from perceiving all the time. And we also are trying to distract ourselves from feeling too much, right? Or experiencing too much all the time too, which is a catch-22 if you're wanting to tune in sometimes, because you have to have a balance. Because we can accidentally keep
Mhm.
our perception of them away, right? By being locked down. But because they're not bound by a body anymore, because their chemistry isn't weighing them down, because they're not getting skewed perspectives via their own programming, their life experience, their damage, right? Or drugs, or who knows.
Yes.
They've got this pure clarity and ability to just purely experience. So they receive it all. Quick note with that though, too.
Mhm.
They don't, thank heavens, feel our hurt and our pain.
Oh, they don't.
They have an understanding of what it is that we're going on. But
Oh.
they're already free. They're not embodying stuff like we do anymore. So, soapbox moment, I called it. This idea of people being stuck, I don't believe in it, and I don't buy into it. I think
How about
sometimes
a spirit being stuck in a house?
I think sometimes they choose to stay in that house. I don't think they're stuck. I think
Oh.
they just like it there and they choose to stay there. So they can be attached in a sense, right? And
Mhm.
kind of like if you get somebody an uninvited guest, can we call it that, that says, "Hey, this is a nice pad. How about I visit for a bit?" And then they're like, "Wow, I'm really liking this place. I'm staying." So you can get uninvited guests, pests. Most often, though, what people are feeling is leftover residual energy
Yes.
from what had
Oh.
happened.
So
And when
maybe
we
not
tune into
necessarily
people in
spirit.
spirit, here's what can throw readers off, in my humble opinion, and I'm still learning, but
Mhm.
I'm always asking the other side
Mhm.
to clarify, not what I think. Um, when we perceive people in spirit, most readers do it, or just people in general, they do it through their own perceptions and beliefs. I leave mine wide open. So it's not being condensed or
No.
compartmentalized or distorted through my view. I ask their perception. The other thing is, oftentimes, so in my style of mediumship, which I just was born with, fell into, let it roll, right? Like I let them lead it,
Mhm.
because I will pick up how they died, what happened, things like that. I think oftentimes people will feel that data, that information, and think it means things are
Oh,
still or not okay.
got it.
It's not where they're at now. It's
Mhm.
not the place that they're coming from now. And so it again depends on perception, like which perspective that we're holding too. And so the intensity, I think, sometimes is because of it was applicable at the
Mhm.
time that everything was there. And we mentally, again, are always trying to understand stuff and what? Put it in comfy little boxes of understanding. And so we go, wow, that's intense. Same as when I was a little kid. That's scary. It must be bad. That
Right.
seems shadowy, must be icky. Doesn't mean it was.
Did you ever share
That's
that with your parents that you were seeing and feeling these things, or did you just keep that internal?
Well, I tried. It didn't go very well. I tried sharing it with a counselor once too, who had called home. She was very sweet. And then I got in trouble for making things up.
Oh,
So I
no.
learned to
Okay.
shut up about it,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and tune
Mhm.
it out, try to ignore it, try to not pay attention to it. But the things that I was perceiving wasn't generally angels. It was usually people. Like we moved a lot when I was younger,
Oh,
and everywhere we moved was haunted. I didn't realize it wasn't the places. It was
you receiving. Yes.
it was me.
Oh my
And
God.
so, but because of having been stressed, that affected my perspective. I was seeing through those lenses.
Exactly.
but
Mm-hmm.
also learned later when I started doing readings and was intrigued by it, was working with angels, right? Good light. And I have this, how are we helping kind of perspective. Everything was always positive. And I went, oh, there's a game changer, not just for me, but for other people too. Where we
Mm-hmm.
come from is huge. And it's really tricky because we as readers have to not discern the information.
Yeah, you just provide that information.
Yep. As
Yeah.
cleanly and as purely as we can without trying to
So,
analyze it. Because otherwise we again distort it without meaning
right.
to.
Yeah, by interjecting, and
It will
that's
come in
right.
precisely as it's supposed to for the client to get it. And even
Right.
if I think something's cool, the client may get something completely different out of it because it's meant for them, or they'll get a
Mhm.
deeper meaning that I'll be blown away by
Yeah.
that I'm not going to get. I had a client just a couple days ago, and I was talking to her mom that had passed and her sister that had passed.
Mm-hmm.
And near the end of it, the sister said, "Love you." And then she showed drawing a heart.
Oh.
And then I heard, but also felt intuitively, she said she leaves her hearts. So I told her that because that's just lovely. Like, how neat is that, right? She leaves her hearts as signs.
Mm-hmm.
And she got quite teary because that's something they used to do for each other
Oh,
when the
really?
sister was alive. So there's
Oh.
that extra little nugget that if I would have interpreted it, we could have missed that whole piece too.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Just stunning.
Gosh, Renee, I miss you now
Oh,
that
I
I'm
missed you
around you
too.
and all your energy. Yeah.
Thanks.
I think I got caught up in my own little world for a while. So
Oh
I'm,
my gosh, how do we not? We're living
yeah.
life. The human condition's not so easy, but the beautiful part is that we have this that we can go to and be with all the time. And I think
Yes.
it's I think it's remembering that even in the busyness, or if we think we're getting something and then poof, it's gone,
Mm-hmm.
they're still there. It's
Mm-hmm.
always there. It's just whether
Yeah.
we're paying attention or we're not. And it's hard to when there's so much going on and our mind is moving 50 million different directions, but so is life too.
Okay. Well, this has been lovely, and we will put all your links down below so people
Cool.
can reach you. And I know we're going to have you on for a couple more sessions
I
at
look forward
least.
to it. We'll hang out.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming
You got
on.
it. Thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.